Welcome back to another Micmac tabletop review. Today we'll be taking a look at the Kel-Tec P-3AT 380 semi-automatic pistol. This is the Kel-Tec P-3AT. Say it fast and you'll get Kel-Tec P-380. 3AT, 380, as in 380 ACP. You must admit that's really pretty clever. The Kel-Tec P-380 holds the title for being the absolute lightest of all 380 pistols and the very first of the 380 micros. As such, the attraction of the Kel-Tec P-380 was the fact that it was just so teeny tiny. Of course, that was Kel-Tec's main goal with the P-380. A very small, ultralight, and very affordable 380. And as I've often suggested in my reviews of self-defense carry guns, the smallest and most discreet firearms are the more likely to actually be carried by their owners. Oh sure, there are smaller 22s and 25 and 32 pistols, but engineering a 380 into such a small lightweight package was quite an accomplishment back in its day. Still is. Looking at it, you may have thought it was one of those highly popular Ruger LCP pocket pistols. That's not surprising, because it's well known that Ruger borrowed heavily from both the profile and the function of the original Kel-Tec P-3AT when designing their Ruger LCP. Maybe borrowed is being kind. Here's my Ruger LCP2. They do indeed look very similar, but note the long external leaf spring extractor here, a unique feature on the P-3AT. I picked this Kel-Tec P-3AT up at an auction a while ago. I like pocket pistols. I own a bunch of them, but I admit that I like the 22, 25, and 32 caliber pocket pistols the best because they're also usually fun to shoot. I've collected quite a few of these over the years. Oh yes, I like a well-made 380 caliber pocket pistol too, but as you may know, 380 pocket pistols tend to be a little uncomfortable to shoot. Basically, they don't make very good range toys. It's the harsh felt recoil that comes with the small, light 380 pistol. Of course, when it comes to their functional use, I tend to view them as indeed more practical as self-defense carry weapons. To that end, in addition to the Ruger LCP2, I also own a Smith & Wesson Bodyguard 380, a Kimber Micro Carry 380, and an absolutely excellent SIG P238 380 Micro Compact. These are all great little pocket pistols. So frankly, I really didn't need another pocket 380, but equipped with a very compact Crimson Trace laser grip, a belt clip, a holster, an extra magazine, and a plastic case, all for only $155, well, I just couldn't pass this Kel-Tec P-380 up. So here it is, and as we'll discuss, and as it turns out, the Kel-Tec P-380 does indeed have a few advantages over my other pocket pistols. But before we go any further, let's make sure this gun is cleared first. And by the way, if you enjoyed this review, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. A little background on Kel-Tec CNC Industries, known as Kel-Tec. It's an American privately owned manufacturer of firearms. Based in Cocoa, Florida, Kel-Tec has developed and manufactured firearms since 1995, starting with semi-automatic pistols. Unfortunately, Kel-Tec's reputation suffered a bit from its early quality issues. The good news is that Kel-Tec's P-3AT, and especially their P-32 micro pistols, have consistently enjoyed very good reviews. The smaller, well-known Kel-Tec P-32 pocket pistol was successfully introduced in 1999 with the release of its Kel-Tec P-380 following 4 years later in 2003. Here's my Kel-Tec P-32. Great little 32 pistol. It's a little smaller and lighter yet than the P-3AT. It is important to acknowledge that Kel-Tec was actually way ahead of the pocket pistol game in its development of the P-3AT. With the P-3AT, Kel-Tec had successfully packaged an extremely lightweight 6-round 380 pistol into the tiniest of concealable firearms, and at the time, the P-3AT was basically the only choice for 380 micro pistols, and better yet, it was affordable. an impressive accomplishment at the time, but it was Ruger, perhaps its biggest competitor, with the launch of their LCP 5 years later in 2008, that eventually overshadowed and outpaced the sales of the Kel-Tec P-380. And by 2022, Kel-Tec had ceased production of the P-3AT. Personally, I believe Ruger's continuous improvement of the LCP was a major advantage, whereas the Kel-Tec P-3AT remained the same. The Ruger LCP continues to evolve and is still produced to this day. Now, while the two guns might look very similar, the Kel-Tec P-3AT is actually dimensionally slightly smaller and more than 20% lighter than the Ruger LCP-2. That's 7.7 ounces compared to 9.6 ounces. Perhaps that doesn't seem like a big deal, but when considering the Kel-Tec P-3AT for deep concealed carry, those differences could make a difference. Of course, that lighter weight makes the P-3AT snappier to shoot. By the way, although the Kel-Tec P-380 has been discontinued, Kel-Tec continues to offer its smaller and lighter and highly popular Kel-Tec P-32. So far, the P-32 has few rivals. You can check out my review of the P-32 at episode number 2024-34. This particular gun was used, but it came in a nice foam-lined, hard plastic Kel-Tec case. No paperwork. It came with 2 magazines, and it has a Crimson Trace grip-activated laser system, which was a very popular option. It came with a belt clip, and it also has a nice Bulldog holster included. Kel-Tec still offers a plastic case, magazines, belt clips, and even the Crimson Trace laser system for the P-3AT on their website in case you're interested. By the way, all these accessories will also fit the smaller P-32, and it's the reason I bought this gun. This is where I usually mention any movies I can find featuring the firearm I'm reviewing, but I couldn't find any for either the Kel-Tec P-3AT or the Kel-Tec 32, which sort of surprised me given their popularity. If you're aware of any movies, please let me know. As for specifications, this is a single-stack, hammer-fired, lock-breech, double-action-only design. Finish on the slide is a choice of blue steeled, parkerized, or hard chrome. The frame is high-impact polymer encapsulated aluminum, available in a variety of colors. Sights, such as they are integrated into the slide, fixed notch rear, and post front. The gun is equipped with a Crimson Trace LG430 laser guard system. It's an add-on unit. The very small laser is here. Grip activation button is here. Adjustments are here. This gun also came with a Kel-Tec add-on belt clip. It's one of the very few pistols designed to be carried by using the clip instead of a holster, making it the slimmest carry solution ever. The grip stippling is aggressive, but aids in maintaining a good grip when firing. The serial number is located here. This long external leaf spring here is the extractor, a unique distinguishing feature of the P-3AT. There's no external safety and no slide hold open lever or release. The P-3AT is equipped with a transfer bar safety. Magazine capacity is 6+1 rounds with a raised magazine release here. Overall length is 5.2 inches. Barrel length is 2.7 inches. Sight radius is 4 inches. Height is 3.5 inches. Width is 0.77 inches. Unloaded weight is 7.7 ounces without the laser or belt clip, which by themselves add less than 2 ounces. Fully loaded weight, 11.1 ounces with laser and belt clip attached. Trigger take-up is about 1/4 inch with about a 3/4 inch length of pull at about 5 pounds with a smooth roll-off. Trigger reset has 2 distinct clicks. The first is at maybe 1/4 inch with a distinct click, and the second is almost full release in order to fully reset. As for function, unlike the conventional straight blowback designs favored by most mouse gun manufacturers, Kel-Tec's designed its P-3AT with a lock breech action system, so the slide is relatively light. And while the P-3AT's double action only trigger is longish and stacks a little, then rolls off at the break, it's also fairly light at only 5 pounds. And unlike most double action only pistols, the P-3AT's hammer does not automatically reset after you pull the trigger. There's no second strike capabilities for rounds that fail to fire. The slide must recoil to the rear to recock the enclosed hammer. Note that having an enclosed hammer, there's obviously no exposed hammer spur, so racking the slide is the only way to reset the hammer. Also, there's no external safety, no slide lock, and the slide does not lock back after the last round has been fired. But you may not be too concerned about all that as you try to grasp the Kel-Tec P-3AT short and really narrow single stack trips. Good thing the slide on this little gun is easy to rack. Still, this is a very, very small .380 pistol. The prickly nature of these molded plastic grips can be uncomfortable, but helps with gripping such a small gun. With my large hands and long fingers, I'm lucky to get my middle finger and only part of my ring finger on the gun. Attempting to use the barely existing sights is another challenge, but if you take your time, you'll find you can get on your target. Just recognize that in a real-world situation, they're probably going to be useless. That's where the Crimson Trace laser system comes into play. Of course, I paid less for this gun than this Crimson Trace system alone would have cost today. And speaking of overcoming some of the Kel-Tec P-3AT shortcomings, you could add finger extensions or extended high-capacity magazines, and even add a set of Hogue grips, but keep in mind that each of these solutions only makes the gun a little larger than the original design. And eventually you've got to ask yourself, then what's the point of the P-3AT in the first place, if not a small, light, inexpensive, easy to carry and hide .380? By the way, the magazine is very easy to load. No need for the assistance of a mag loader here. Note that the slide serrations are quite small, so getting a good grip could be challenging, but racking the slide itself is actually fairly light. I found that racking with my thumb on the larger left side serrations works best for me. Now, before pulling the trigger, it's good to keep in mind this little .380's potential to produce a shock to the hand. Basic physics would suggest that firing a .380 round from such a little lightweight pistol would get your attention. But I found that being prepared for the jolt of the felt recoil and inevitable muzzle flip would also help you maintain reasonable control. Back to the P-3AT's trigger, I've got to say, compared to my original Ruger LC P-380's sometimes pinching trigger, the P-3AT's trigger is actually surprisingly not bad. Yes, the trigger on my newer Ruger LC P2 is far better. Also, I was warned to expect the P-3AT's trigger to be gritty, but that's not the case with this one. It's nice and smooth. So let's try this pistol out at the range. As a pocket pistol, I think a distance of 18 feet should be enough to test this gun's capabilities. After all, the Kel-Tec P-3AT is obviously a close-up self-defense weapon. And although I usually turn lasers off for training purposes, there's no off switch on this one, short of removing the batteries. So you'll note that I've placed a little piece of black electrical tape over the laser, so I won't be distracted by the laser's dot while training. Here we are at the range. I've set the profile target out to 18 feet for this test. I just want to get a feel for this gun to begin with. I'll just try for center mass. No hold open on last shot function on this gun. Not bad for my first shots. I was warned to expect the Kel-Tec P-3AT to kick and jump in the hand. Yes, there's a bit of that, but it's surprisingly more comfortable and controllable than I expected. Let's try a second magazine. Muzzle flip is certainly noticeable. Still, I am on target. Sorry, I forgot to turn on one of the cameras, but you can see the outcome of my shots here. No doubt my clusters are not great, but that has more to do with these tiny sights and the fact that it's hard to get a good solid grip on this gun due to its size. I can see why the grip texture is so rough. That helps. Undoubtedly, an extended magazine and a whole grip sleeve would make a heck of a big difference. Okay, I'm already getting used to this little gun. Typical for me, my first shot is usually dead on. It's all about the follow-up shots. With practice, I think I could become pretty good with this little gun. Let's try some rapid fire. Okay, attempting to shoot rapidly, I've got an unpredictable group at 18 feet. Not only are the sights almost useless and the grip's too short, but this trigger with its long reset is also part of the problem. Okay, target out at 25 feet and remove the tape here so we can wrap up my range time using the laser. Now that's why I carry with the laser attached. Nice little gun, but I need to practice. As for pros and cons, I've already covered many of the Kel-Tec's P-3AT's pros and cons, but I should mention that I think Kel-Tec did a pretty good job of improving on earlier temperamental functioning problems, such as most commonly mentioned failures to eject on early models. Of course here, even after about 100 rounds, I've had no feeding or extraction problems, no jamming or ammo issues of any type. This particular pistol functioned flawlessly, even with different ammo. There have been more recent complaints about out-of-the-box break-in issues on new guns, but of course this is a used gun and none were apparent. By the way, I should mention that spent shells didn't always eject to the side as they should. So I've had a hot brass shell land inside my collar a couple of times. And one more thing, note that I have the Kel-Tec belt clip on this gun. Great for minimal bulk when carrying, but if you intend to carry like this, that is without a trigger guard covering holster, I highly recommend you carry loaded, but without a round in the chamber just to be safe. Remember that the P-3AT has no external safety, but the good news is that the gun is very easy to rack into action when needed. By the way, I know 1911 owners who similarly carry without a round in the chamber rather than cocked and locked because they view it as just safer. Personally, I agree. And finally, as a truly ultralight 380, even fully loaded with the Crimson Trace grip activated laser and the belt clip attached, the total weight is still only about 11 ounces. That's pretty incredible, and without a doubt, the Kel-Tec P-3AT's #1 primary feature as a carry weapon. Disassembly is just like the Ruger LCP, or perhaps technically I should say the LCP is just like the Kel-Tec P-3AT's. Whatever, remove the magazine. Use a sharp screwdriver to carefully pry the takedown pin out here on the left side of the frame. Remove the slide forward, then remove the recoil spring and rod, and then the barrel. And that's it. By the way, note that we have a double recoil spring. And if you look here, you can see the aluminum frame rails and upper section that's molded into the polymer frame and grip. Good design. Reassembly is just the opposite. Return the barrel, rod, and recoil springs to the slide. Return the slide to the frame, and insert the takedown pin. Install the magazine and test for function. That's it. TrueGunValue.com currently suggests a value of only about $225 for a used Kel-Tec P-3AT. A new one lists for about $340. I was able to get this used one with its Crimson Trace grip laser and other accessories for only about $155, so there are some pretty good deals out there. Sure, there's no doubt that the Kel-Tec P-3AT isn't as popular as the more in-demand Kel-Tec P32, but if you're lucky enough to find a P-3AT for about $150, I'd say that's probably a very reasonable deal. By the way, a new Ruger LCP 380 has a manufacturer's suggested retail price of $260 and a real-world actual price of only about $200. So that's something to consider as well. Now before we end today's video, I'd like to remind you, if you haven't already, be sure to like, share, and subscribe down below. And thanks for watching. So to summarize, Here we have the legendary ultra micro pocket pistol that led the way in the early market of 380 micro pistols, way ahead of others that followed like the Ruger LCP, Taurus Spectrum, Sig P238, Kimber 380 Micro, Smith & Wesson Bodyguard, Springfield Armory 911, and the Car P380. It would be easy to argue that most of these latecomers are far better 380 pistols, but the Kel-Tec P-3AT is still considered the lightest and one of the trimmest 380 semi-automatics ever made. Really, even if you're just looking for a backup weapon, I truly can't think of one better than the Kel-Tec P-3AT for ease of carry. Of course, to build a small, light, inexpensive pocket pistol, one must expect a few compromises. But in the case of the Kel-Tec P-3AT, not many. Even today, with the P-3AT no longer being produced, there are probably few 380s that can beat how easy it is to hide and carry this ultra-light little pistol. And of course that was entirely the point, but it must be acknowledged that the P-3AT isn't much of a range toy. Although I didn't find it too uncomfortable to shoot, its short grips, tiny sights, and long reset trigger provided a challenge when trying to maintain close groupings. Still, in spite of its shortcomings, it's a pistol that leaves you with very few excuses not to be carried. And I like the very compact laser and really like the belt clip. Talk about streamlined carry. You just can't do much better. So wrapping up, I was pleased to find the Kel-Tec P-3AT met my expectations when it came to an affordable, small and very lightweight 380 micro pocket pistol. I was happy to find that handling and controlling the P-3AT with a little practice was easier once I got a feel for the gun. And accuracy was acceptable for such a short-barreled, short-grip firearm. Sure, tempting to shoot rapidly resulted in more unpredictable groups, even at 18 feet, but that was to be expected with such a little gun. Of course, that should improve with practice. Is the Kel-Tec P-3AT a gun that can be carried safely and relied upon? I'd say yes, if you commit to regular practice. Realistically, this is not a range toy gun, but rather, with training, it can be an easy to conceal and carry firearm that can be easily brought into action when needed. Personally, I have no plans to add thicker, more comfortable grips or extended magazines for higher capacity or better grip. I mean, the whole point behind the Kel-Tec P-3AT is its compactness. With the belt clip for holstering and compact Crimson Trace laser grip activated laser, this is certainly one of the most discreet yet effective 380s available. Yes, we could argue on and on about the P-3AT's limitations, such as its limited capacity, its mediocre ballistics, its small sights, its felt recoil, etc. But the fact is this: because it's so discreet, it's actually a firearm that's more likely to be carried, and consistently carried every day, which you'll have to admit is the way it should be, and the whole purpose of the Kel-Tec P-3AT. And that leads us to this final point. Any weapon you carry is certainly better than the one you left at home. Thanks for watching. Hope you'll be back for my next tabletop review. Until next time, stay safe.